Joining us now is Dr. Michael Breus, the sleep doctor. Today we're talking about sleep and your brain, a very important component. What happens to your brain when you go to sleep? Because you lose consciousness,
right?
But then a whole bunch of other things take over.
Yes, absolutely. So here's what we know is everybody goes through a very subscribed sleep cycle. So you enter into sleep in stage 1, and then you go from stage 1 to stage 2, then into stage 3 and 4, which is the physically restorative deep sleep. It's one of the first things you get. Then you go back to stage 2 and into REM. That's where your eyes move back and forth and a lot of dreaming occurs. That cycle takes about 90 minutes, and the average person has about 5 of those cycles. Here's where it gets fascinating, is in the front part of the night, or the first third of the night, that's where the physical restoration comes in. That's where you get the most deep sleep. And in the back end of the night, that's where you get the most REM sleep. And your brain has different levels of activity during all of that. So while you're getting that physical restoration, your brain slows down. But during that mental restoration, believe it or not, your brain is more active during REM sleep than it is when you're awake.
More active?
More active.
How's that possible? Well, what's it doing?
Well, and that's really one of the big questions. We now know that during REM sleep, you're moving information from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. You're organizing information in a particular way, so that way, later on, if you have to make a decision about something, you can retrieve that information much easier. The old adage of sleep on it before you make a decision makes sense.
And if you don't do that, like if you deprive yourself of sleep, what happens to your brain and its ability to sort out your life?
So this becomes very interesting. So the more sleep deprived we get, the more confused we get. And the reason we have that confusion is because we don't have that integration of information. When you don't have integration of information, you have mounds and mounds and mounds of information, and the brain just gets more and more confused. After a while, the body will force you into sleep merely to be able to integrate that information and move it from short-term memory to long-term memory.
So if you're not getting appropriate amounts of sleep, is there a connection between that and age-related dementia? Not Alzheimer's necessarily, but age-related dementia, if we're not being able to defrag properly?
Absolutely. So we now know that as we get older, our brain doesn't function the same way it did when we got younger, right? So, we used to have great muscles when we're young, and then as we get older, those muscles don't perform the same way. Brain is kind of the same thing. And when we look at something like age-related dementia, now sleep isn't the only component that's going to affect that, but it's definitely going to have an influence on that, whether it's memory or different types of performance activities or, different things that are going to be important in a person's life.
No doubt that sleep is important to every part of our well-being, mind, body, and soul.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on
Thank you.
This segment of Empowered Health.